Before we get into today's episode, I want to share something that's helped transform my daily routine. I've started using Bob, the refillable bottle-free body wash designed specifically for men. If you're still using bottled shower gel, you're literally washing money down the drain. Let's face it, you always use more than you need and half of it just slips through your hands before it touches your skin. Bob combines a reusable applicator with exfoliating bristles and the world's first refillable body wash bars, formulated to match a man's skin pH of 5.5. All this means you get a deep clean with zero wastage. It's better for your skin, better for your wallet, and better for the planet. For an exclusive 15% offer on your first order, head over to welcometobob.com and use the code meaningofmen15 at checkout. Welcome back to The Meaning of Men, the show dedicated to helping men find meaning, purpose, and resilience in their lives. I'm your host, Simeon Atkins, and today we're diving into the world of entrepreneurship with Michael Brennan. Michael shares his journey of building a successful business, hitting burnout, and navigating the emotional and mental toll of stepping away from something that you've poured your heart into. We talk about self-doubt, the power of surrounding yourselves with the right people, and how to find clarity when you're lost in the noise. We also get into Michael's latest venture, Bob, a business born during one of his lowest moments, now set to shake up the men's personal care space. Whether you're starting a business, facing a personal challenge, or just searching for your next big move, this episode is packed with honesty, insight, and inspiration. Let's get into it. Michael, if I was meeting you for the first time, how would you describe in a few sentences who you are?
An ordinary man trying to achieve extraordinary things. I am passionate, enthusiastic, romantic, that loves the idea of entrepreneurship. I love business. I love everything I do about that, and trying to just enjoy life and everything that comes with it.
What would you like people to take away from our conversation today?
I think, Simeon, having listened to all of your wonderful podcasts to date, just the mindset for anybody listening that you can achieve anything if you put your mind to it. And that's been my biggest learning from a very young age. I have so many dreams and ambitions that terrify me. But actually, when you start trying to achieve them and do one step towards it, things happen. And the second part is that resilience is a key part, and you've got to keep going. And it's not, things aren't easy in life, no matter what that means, in business, in personal life. You've just got to find ways to, I suppose, look after yourself and keep going. So that's probably the two things I would say, Simeon.
Yeah, and we're going to be focusing around entrepreneurship and diving into some of the experiences and all the successes and trials and tribulations that come with that. And I think a lot of what we're going to be talking about today is going to really hit the mark, whether you are someone that's setting up a business or whether you're, as you said, you're just kind of going through every day-to-day life and you're striving for something big and exciting and you're just looking to get started, and you might be doubting yourself and you might be facing some struggles along the way. I think a lot of what we'll talk about today will really help with that. And there's certainly things going on in my life at the moment that I think this will be very relevant for as well. The place I want to start is getting the idea of what inspired you to become an entrepreneur in the first place. Where did that seed first get planted, and what did that look like in the early days?
Great question. Some people wanted to be an astronaut. Some people wanted to be a footballer. Some people wanted to be a singer. I just, for whatever reason, loved watching the early Dragon's Dens, or loved watching the original Apprentice before it became a TV commodity in that respect. I think through university, had a module of business management and starting a new business. And it was specifically there that the module itself allowed me to be available to try different things, such as business management, such as starting a new business, such as the idea creation, such as the marketing. It was a taste of everything. And I realized I am jack of all trades, but a master of none. And I like that. I like a little bit of everything, and I can see a picture of it, but I struggle with extreme detail and operational management. I really fight myself. Some people can pick up emails and have multiple tasks and be amazing. I crumble. I if my to-do list gets too big, I can't do anything. But back to the question of what inspired me, it was the likes of the Richard Bransons of the world. It was those sort of characters that was just growing things. I think to start with, it was I wanted to be rich. I've had a lovely upbringing from my parents in the northeast of England, and they've given me everything I've ever wanted to. But we struggled at times. We nearly lost a house at times. My father has dementia, unfortunately, at a young age, and so from my early 20s all the way through, I sort of grew up very, very quickly, and seeing the success and the ability that money can change your life in a very, very shallow way is probably what drew me into that. But as I've gone through the journey, I've realized actually it's about the journey. And what really drives me back into entrepreneurship is that when you're in it, there is nothing better than solving problems, having those successes and creating something new. So there was sort of a vision of seeing people, seeing success, and actually a realization over time of why I want to continue to be an entrepreneur.
I think that's a lovely point as well around enjoying the journey. I think that comes up in a lot of conversations that I have. I think I'm certainly guilty of this. You have something you're working towards and you're very focused on the results and what that is ultimately going to look like. Whereas taking a step back and actually enjoying the process, enjoying the growing and the learning and what's happening in between starting off and the ultimate end goal is so important. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, when you reach your end goal, well, what's next? You have to find something else that's going to drive you and motivate you. So I think just spending some time enjoying that uncomfortable feeling of learning and growing and just kind of going through the process. Do you feel like, as an entrepreneur and someone that I'm sure knows and works with a lot of entrepreneurs, are there certain qualities you think that you have that will enable you to take that step? It's something that I think a lot of people probably would love to do, but maybe are questioning whether it's really for them. What do you think about that?
I think it's a great question. There's two answers, if I may, to that in how I see it. One is I realized from a young age, because I had to due to my father having dementia and kind of losing that male figure in my life of kind of would help me do things or guide me in the way or show me the path. Your biggest blocker is your own mind. Your biggest competition is what you fear internally. There's always going to be competition. There's always going to be risk. There's never going to be the right time. You're going to have children. All these things that come into play. And for me, I realized quite quickly it's my own mind and my own fears. And if I don't look after myself, don't go to the gym or have too many beers for too many weeks in a row, suddenly I have a lot more negativity in my mind, or I doubt myself more, or might not go and push myself. But when I feel hungry and I'm clean and got the right people around me and I don't drink as much, things happen and drive in that respect. So I think there's that mindset around it that's really, really critical. And I think the second part of it is, and I was quite lucky because the qualities that people might say about me or what I'm learning to believe is that risk tolerance and resilience is a really important part, and that ability. I am not scared to run out of money anymore because I've run out of money in business and I've run out of money personally. And when that happened, it's scary. But when you realize that you can manage that through and you can always get a job and you can keep your dream going, for me, that unlocked another level of aspiration or drive that, like, I know where the bottom is now because I've hit it, both mentally, personally, financially. I have been there and it's not fun. Once you understand where the boundaries are, and you don't have to be scared of it, just be aware of what's there and prepare yourself for that, you won't run out of money. So I think it's I might come across as almost crazy and exciting and everything, but actually it's risk management and what can you control, be aware of, and what you can't control, don't worry about it. You can't control it. These things will happen, but you can point yourself in the right direction. So I think it's risk adversity is probably the main point, but also controlling your mind and realizing that you are a competitor of yourself over anybody else is probably the biggest thing I would take away.
Yes, and I think that imposter syndrome, certainly whether it's starting a business or just starting a venture or just doing something that's maybe seemingly insurmountable at the time, or something that's really taking you out of your comfort zone. I mean, it's definitely something that I continue to experience with a lot of things that I do. Is this the kind of feeling of imposter syndrome, and why should I be doing this versus someone else? And look at all the other people that are doing this, maybe the similar thing that I'm looking to do. And those feelings of self-doubt. And I think you're right. That is almost your biggest enemy over anything else.
I personally make my goal or objective 10 times bigger than it needs to be so that the actual objective is okay to achieve, if that makes sense. So things scare me, like they terrify me. In previous businesses and in my latest business, I've fundraising, and I've become, it's one of my strengths of learning how to pitch quickly, how to structure a deck, how to create finances. And that's 10 years of experience of failing every single day around it. But if I need to raise £500,000, in my head, I'm going out to raise 5 million. Because if I act like that, I will try and fill that round. And you know what? I might get lucky and get the 5 million, but I'll hit every branch down the tree and probably get the £500,000. And it doesn't need to be, that's just example numbers, right? It could be raising £5,000 or £10,000. If you go for a number that's much bigger, you will find the network that won't put the 5 million in, but they might relatively put in a little bit of money. And they'll ask you the questions and you'll learn around that. I think the other thing about that imposter syndrome bit and advice, again, this is all my own opinions and how I live myself. It's not right or wrong for anybody else. Is I've learned to surround myself with people that are better than me. I used to be terrified of it. I used to almost, I'm a very competitive person in sport. And if you weren't on my team, I didn't want to know about you. And I always used to get jealous of the better rugby players, even though I wasn't that good, or the better footballers, but I realized if I learned how to make friends with them and then one day be on their team, I could learn a lot from them. And even better than that, I started to realize that people could learn things from me. And I think that takes away some of that self-doubt. The moment you realize what you're good at and your strengths are, double down on them. And examples in all my businesses is, my first business was a software platform called Toot Toot. It was the world's first app for young people to report bullying and mental health issues. So hugely wedded to that after my own childhood issues of bullying, and a passion project became a business. But I am not a developer, and I do not have the capabilities or want to learn how to code. And this was before ChatGPT and everything around there. And so I had to find someone that could. And it turned out that person called Kieran, this is an incredible, not only developer, he's now the CEO of that previous business that we co-founded together. He was my usher at my wedding and still best friends. But he brought a skill set that complemented mine, but we didn't have the same of. And now in this next business, I have two co-founders, Will and Max. Will is an operational genius and does all the detail and can do things so fast and so structured. It's amazing. Whereas Max is very, very creative. You couldn't ask him to do anything operationally, he would crumble. But what he brings out in his creative capabilities, and we learn how to work with that, the complements together. So I think surround yourself with those people that you are in competition with, because a podcast to a podcast, for example, or growing that, you can learn how someone has grown their audience very quickly, and suddenly you might even be a guest on that podcaster. But you will also remind them of going back to their roots and the simplicity and the structure and the true value of what you're trying to achieve. I think in this podcast is so clear for men and the audience that it probably reminds them. So I think that's what I would take away from that.
Yeah, I love that. And I think particularly in the early days, there is that insecurity of maybe getting support from other people or bringing other people in a similar field. And I think, again, we're talking specifically about business, but I think this is so relevant to so many different aspects of life. I mean, I can even think of something like fatherhood, for example. I think I definitely feel as a father of two, there are times where I feel like I should know everything and should be able to do everything. And there are all kinds of thought processes that go on with that. But like you said there, it's about understanding and recognizing the strengths that you bring to the table. And if you need to bring in external support, whatever that looks like, family network, partners, friends, whatever it is, to help with things, to just be there as support, whatever it might be, there's no shame in that. And in fact, that's actually ultimately going to help make you better in whatever you're doing and like progress you that way. We spoke quite a bit at length offline about the first business that you had, and obviously the successes that you had, but also the challenges, not just of growing a business, but the balancing act of a business and having your personal life too. And one of the things that you'd mentioned to me is this feeling of guilt potentially when you were either stepping away from the business to recharge your batteries, or then stepping away from the personal and family life to go back to the business. How do you sort of manage those feelings that you're giving enough to both and not feeling like it's a bad thing that you might be putting more time into one and vice versa?
I definitely haven't got that balance right still. I really haven't. I'm lucky that my wife runs a very successful PR agency. Started at the same time as my latest business in London, and she's grown from one employee up to 10, but had tribulations where she lost her co-founder to suicide. And so it's been an awful time on that aspect to support her through in the journey. But we're lucky that we both run businesses and we understand what has to be done. And so I'm very, very lucky that my support network that I have via my wife allows me and understands that sometimes I've just got to work till 2 a.m. and I can't come to bed. But it also allows me on a Friday, if we want to leave at lunchtime, to get in the car and we go north, or we go and do something. So I think the guilt aspect comes from me as a character. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm very emotional. And one of my biggest and exhausting emotions is worrying about what other people think. It exhausts me. I want to make sure my friends like me. And I'm sure they do, but I worry that they don't. I want my network to like me and appreciate and respect me. And there's so many things that I want. And if you start getting into that mindset of worrying what other people say or think, it can crumble you, and it still does. And again, that's where you need great people in your life and your network just to remind you that may not be as emotional as you, to sort of say, you're doing the right thing. If you stay in this environment, you are going to end up being in hospital because you are burning yourself out, you're worrying, you're sleeping, you're not operating, and actually you're doing your own business that you built a disservice because you're just a yes man now. Whereas at the start you're like, no, yes, do this, do that. We've got to get this done. This is the mission. I lost a lot of that in my last business because I burnt out during the COVID period of worrying and making sure everyone was happy, and schools were closing and budgets were being cut, trying to launch another product in there. It became very difficult to manage. So if you let the emotion and the exhaustion and the tiredness get hold of you, like it did to me, you get burnout. And so I felt immensely guilty having to say to my co-founder Kieran, I need to step down. And we did it across 12 months. And I cared about the people in the business and the investors that I brought into the business, and really struggled to come to terms that it was the right thing for me to step out. I couldn't tell you why. I just knew I had to protect that business and get myself out to protect me. And I think because of those experiences, and I'm sure lots of your listeners have experiences even in employment, you can burn out in employment because there's so many tasks to do. There's family challenges. There's bosses and managers that aren't great. There are bosses and managers that are great, that expect the world out of you. All of that becomes exhausting. And if you don't manage that in the right way and let the guilt get hold of you, it's a mentally physical thing that can happen where you're in a bad place. And I think it's about coping mechanisms of knowing when you're tired to switch off, and there's always tomorrow. A task can wait. Even a presentation, you're better off going to bed and waking up at 5 the next day to do it. And in a personal life, it's okay to say no. If you can't go and see those friends, they're still going to like you the next day. You don't have to go. It's all right. And I think that's how I try and cope at the minute with managing lots going on at any one time.
I think some of that potentially comes down to internal and external validation, trying to keep people happy and getting that external validation, and maybe trying to focus and concentrate a little bit more on the internal motivation and validation rather than worrying about what other people are thinking all the time can help with that. Easier said than done, I know, because I'm definitely guilty of that as well. Particularly, I think when you're setting up a business as well, it's not just the people, but it's also like, what are the results looking like? How are we tracking? How are we performing, etc. you were talking about some of the tough times there with Toot Toot. Tell us a little bit more about what happened there, what caused you to step down, and what impact that started to have on business and personal life.
I think it became a huge blur of the stress of trying to grow a business in a difficult time, losing sight personally of what the next steps were and whether I could take the business to that next step. And that physically felt like I was lifting a weight. If I thought about, okay, we're turning over £500,000, how do we get to £1 million business? And what do we put in place and what investment do we need? I would almost sit down as if someone had put a training rucksack on me with 100 kilo and went, stand up. And it physically floored me to that point of what it takes to get a business to that level at that speed, having done it sort of 2 or 3 times to there, and knowing whether I could do it in that market. The business was changing direction, so we launched a staff engagement platform called Strive, which is doing extremely well. It was targeted at HR directors and leadership teams, and I'd spent 9 years of my life inside out learning about the education sector and every detail of safeguarding and the requirements of that, to suddenly, great product, great opportunity, let's launch another product. The realization of, actually, I've not been in the HR world, and I understand what the platform can do from a staff engagement and employee and a well-being point of view, but there was so much more to this Pandora's box that we'd developed and opened that I didn't feel I was the right person to take that forward. So you had the stress of growing the business and where do you sit, and then the reality of like, well, can I get up every morning and do what I did on the Toot Toot side of the second business? And then some personal stuff with my father on the other side that was getting a bit stressful. Just that combination got to the point where I didn't enjoy what I was doing. And it took me a while to realize that I was unhappy because of those 3 things. Not what anybody was doing wrong, just I wasn't doing anything right for myself. And once you realize that it's actually okay to step yourself out of a situation, and I relate to people that might have a job. You know, if you're thinking of changing your job or you don't like your job, it's terrifying because you're used to and you're accustomed to that paycheck that pays the rent, pays the mortgage. And, you know, we're all lucky if we have any more than a month's worth of savings at any one time with the cost of living at the minute. Like, it's scary. But you can change your path whilst doing what you're doing. You can, but it takes investment in you. And I think this is what people in today's society, you know, I'm going to be very forward here. We're all happy to invest 40 hours a week into someone else's business, but particularly in the entrepreneurial world, if you're not prepared to invest 40 hours a week separate to that into yourself and into your own business, I don't think entrepreneurship's for you. I think you just need to find another job that you actually enjoy and find what aligns to your strength. Back to the previous bit, write down on paper the 3 things that you are good at or you love or you wish you could do. I wish I could do this full-time living. Great. Well, where's the job that involves you being around that? You know, you can be a CFO of a football club if you want to. If you're a CFO of a boring accountancy company, it doesn't matter. Go and find that and work out how to do it. So that they're all there. But I think it's that for me. I think it's bringing that all together and driving that forward.
What was the mental impact of you having to step away? Because that must have been so difficult. This business that you built, doing well, recognizing that for both business and personal reasons, you needed to take a step back. What kind of impact did that have on you?
Huge. Probably still recovering from it now, actually. A lot more than I thought. I think why was it huge was I wasn't expecting sympathy, but I was hoping that my potential business network at the time, some of the investors that become mentors and been with me for 10 years, might have understood the decisions a bit more than they did, because that goes back to my point about caring about everything. You know, business is business, some people will say. But for me, it's not. It's, you know, I treat everybody in the same way I was as a friend, and, you know, I'd want to go back to business for someone, and therefore you treat your suppliers in the right way, you treat your partners in the right way. You know, that's just me. And I think for the shut off or the change of 10 years, I'd built this life that was business and connections and friends. And actually I had to move myself away, almost like you were moving away from a friend group and a family to the other side of the world that you just may not have seen again. I am now very close to the business and talk to Kieran regularly, as I've always done, but helping to advise on suggested leads or different things like that when Kieran asks. Like, I love that, and I'm very happy for that. But that completely decoupling yourself and stepping away to not even sort of stay part of the business, it was very much I had to do that and move myself away. That mental scarring, because although the body wants you to stay in its comfort zone, I know what you've done, your Ironmans and everything, so we talk about comfort zones and training. God, I'm nowhere near you, but I'm sure the body screams at you to say, just stop, get off the bike, stop swimming. It was that, but to the point in which I never wanted to do the equivalent Ironman again. I was like, I'm gonna get a job. Like, I don't want all of this. That it completely drained me to the point in which I was a broken man, and quite weak in mind, in the sense of, we're just kind of, what should we do today, wifey? What should we do tomorrow? Okay, yeah, I'm going to do that. And I took 6 months off. I didn't have enough money to survive for 6 months, but I did. I made it work. I didn't do anything other than focus on myself, go to the gym, get a dog, the usual things that you probably hear when you burn out. But with every adversity comes, triumph and the other side. And I think I can sit here now and feel the pain of going that way and not scared to say that. I was exhausted, I was knackered, I was emotional, I cried, but whilst crying in the shower at times, it made me to look around the shower and realise that there's potentially another business in here. And a shower is a man's best friend, and we'll come on to that later on. But at the time, you wouldn't tell me that when I'm sitting on the floor in my shower going, I can't get up. I don't want to go. I don't want to get up. And it was never for me to a point of worrying friends and family. I would never got to that stage of, and nor would I. I love life. But I did keep going, what is wrong with me? Why am I exhausted? Why am I so emotional? And I couldn't get those answers for a long time. But yeah, it had a huge impact.
Hi everyone, I want to take a moment to shout out Apex Everest, an incredible organisation and partner of the show who are pushing the limits of human resilience. Imagine this, climbing the equivalent of Mount Everest, but right here in the UK, by summiting the Helvellyn mountain 9 times in just 48 hours. But Apex isn't just about the challenge, it's the chance to be part of a year-round, vibrant community dedicated to unlocking your true potential. Whether you're looking to push your own limits or you're part of a team wanting to build an unshakable bond, this experience will stick with you for life. So if you're ready to conquer your Everest and be part of something special, check out apexeverest.com to find out more. Sounds like from what you were saying there, a lot of it was maybe identity based as well. You'd put so much of your identity and net worth into the business, and then having to take yourself away from that was almost questioning, well, who am I? What is my purpose now moving forward, I guess?
I think you summarised it in one line to me that I'll take away from today's call. It's like, I think I lost my purpose. And I love, many people would have heard this, I'm sure, listening, but the Simon Sinek's It Starts With Why. And the golden circle for me defines me perfectly. I have to start with a why. And if I can get behind that why, I will drive a business forward. I will drive anything in life. I will do a marathon, whatever it takes, no matter how fast or slow. If that why aligns with why I'm doing something, you're not going to stop me. And I think it's about finding your purpose in a hobby, finding your purpose in a charity event, finding your purpose in work. And as long as you've got one of them at any one time, I think everyone enjoys themselves with a few moans and hassle. I think when you lose purpose or a why in the key areas of your life of home, family, work, and none of them are lining up, I think that's when it's a very dangerous space, particularly for a male person, not male and female, but for men who don't know how to articulate their emotions or speak about them or know who to talk to, or more importantly, have someone to listen to get them out, because that's a dangerous place to be in.
I want to get on to in a minute talking about your current business venture, Bob, and where that came from and how that's going. There's a few elements and aspects to entrepreneurship that I really want to dive into, because I think, again, it just is so relevant to both business but also just everyday life as well. One thing, and I've said this a few times, that I definitely struggle with is around ego, and my ego definitely getting in the way of the best meaning people and the best suggestions and things that people can say. I feel like if it's said in a certain way, or if I'm made to feel a certain way, then my ego will just take over and maybe lead me to not making the right decisions. And I can imagine, as someone that owns a business and runs a business, you've got your idea of how you want it to be run, and maybe if some other people come up with different ideas and different ways or different strategies of doing things, I can imagine that ego could possibly overtake sometimes. Is that something that you found when you've run businesses before?
100%. I'll probably play this down and say, yeah, I can manage it. But if you ask my co-founders, I'll probably say that when I get something in the bit between my teeth, there's no stopping me. And my biggest challenge is, hopefully most of the time I'm informed in the direction I want it to go, because I've really thought about before pushing something. But I also struggle to articulate the why I want it to be that way. I'm learning to get better at that, of selling the why something's going in that direction. I think I resonate with you in the ego element, and understand why as well, because a business, or a team, is ultimately a group of people, or a person going in, or people going in the right direction to achieve a common goal. And those that like the idea of entrepreneurship or team or life will talk about it, but they won't do. And there's a huge importance of structuring where you want to get to, your North Star, and then mapping out the steps, even if it's 1,000 steps, to get to that North Star. But in order to get to that North Star, you've got to complete those 1,000 steps, right? And it'll be the same for training in anything you do. You can't just turn up to an Ironman. Maybe one in a million people could rock up and have the genes to do it, but probably even then they wouldn't get very far. But like you and our very good friend Dom that's put us together, I watched Dom train, and it blew my mind. I kept saying, I'd have a pint, and he wouldn't. And I was like, how? And I must have put him off, because I was so in admiration of trying to get my mind round working a job and training before and after. For me, that was terrifying, and I still don't want to do it in the Ironman sense. But it's getting the delivery bits right, and making sure that the ego protects the goal, but doesn't prevent you from achieving the bits that are right to get to the goal. And I now have to be a bit careful that I set the direction and we need to go this way, and yes, it's clear, but I also have to make sure that the team are on board with it. And if they have ideas, that they need to be able to lead with it and drive it. Otherwise, we're going to be sitting here in this next business with a 3-man team, or a lady hopefully will come in at some point, 4 in total, but then it's going to be led by no growth, because the trust is not there. And I think there's a balance in kind of business and in life of this, like, control, ownership, ego, and trust to get the job done, because everyone has an idea of how something should be done. My wife butters the toast differently to me, and I get it wrong every time because I miss the side of the crusts. But I don't care, because I just put the butter in the middle and taste the butter, and off I go. But it's not how she wants the toast buttered. And it's a silly example, but it's okay to both be different in how we put butter on toast. But you can see how it can go wrong if an argument happens because the other person's not done it right, or it should be in that way. And that's where the power play of ego then comes over of, well, no, it should be that way, with no why. It's understanding why. Well, I don't like the crusts buttered. It's a stupid example, but I think there's an element there of how you control the ego, and when you play the ego, and when it's right and when it's not. Ben Francis did a brilliant vlog and podcast about starting a business, and hopefully have a look at it if anyone hasn't seen it. but it just talks about it's very hierarchical and authoritative in that particular environment, because it's got to be done. You've got to do these things to get to the next stage at speed, and you've got to be comfortable with 60% of it being right, and that's okay, because speed is of the essence to prove, demonstrate, validate, to then get the momentum and grow. So I think ego, when used in the wrong way, can actually be very, very damaging for your own growth or the business's growth or your personal growth.
Yeah, and I think it's something that you said there reminded me of something I'd heard a while ago around, it's not about getting it right the first time, it's about getting it right eventually, if that makes sense. So as you were saying there, like maybe starting off with getting it right 60% of the time, taking those learnings and moving forward. I think if you put too much pressure on getting everything right the first time, that's where obviously like the ego can come into it, because you don't want to hear if you're getting things wrong. But if you can see it as an opportunity to learn and to grow and get it right and get better, that certainly helped me with a lot of situations I've been in, for sure.
Well, I'm going to ask you a question, but how do you manage the ego playback, Simeon, in that respect? Like, when do you know when to use it? How does that work for you?
I think a lot of it comes down to actually the other person. And I know that sounds like a real cop-out, but a lot of it, I think, depends on how the other person is saying the question or the comment to me. If it's said in a way that I feel threatened is probably a strong word, but, made to feel maybe small or wrong or whatever it might be, then that is where the ego is more than likely going to take over. But if it's put in a constructive and loving way, for want of a better word, I think I'm much more likely then to respond better to that. And I think it's just also having an awareness that it's a weakness of mine, and I've known it for a while, and it's just having that awareness of just trying to get better with it and trying to manage it better. And again, maybe coming back to more of the internal versus external validation. If I'm worried too much about what other people are thinking and saying and external results, then that can potentially drive the ego as well. But if I'm thinking more about that internal validation and going back to the why and things like that, I think that can certainly help, for sure.
The reason I asked you that back was because sometimes blocking out all voices and opinions in any walk of life is actually a really easy thing to sort of oversee and not do. And I think at times people just need time to think, because, again, going back to that opinion and talking, you could listen to someone that you really like and go down a path because they have experience in other areas but not your own experience, and so you follow that down the path. But you might not listen to someone that's bolshy and big-headed and, well, that's what I would do, and you kind of go, well, all right. And I think it's about understanding where and how you get feedback. If you're actively going out to friends and family to ask about a particular thing, idea, journey of what you're going to do, you have to be prepared for things to be said that you're just not going to like, but you've led the conversation. I think if people like to give massive opinions on things, it's then very quickly understanding, well, did I ask for that? Is that going to do anything for me, or is that person just betraying their jealousy or their want onto you? And again, it took me a while for that, because I used to listen to all feedback and find myself changing a million things in my life and suddenly going, well, I've gone no further forward. I've just gone left, right over the road, and the road's straight. And it's that's quite tiring to absorb a comment, a feeling, a question, a challenge, and then respond and do something with it unless it's right. So I've slowly got better at it, but I still very much struggle to decide what feedback is worth listening to.
When you've been going through some of these challenging times, how have friends and family best supported you? I know that you said that your wife is running a business as well, so you've got that level of understanding, which helps. But if I'm someone that's listening that might have a man in my life that is running a business or just doing something, as we said, that was just kind of like above and beyond, like a big challenge that they're undertaking, and they might be struggling a little bit with that at the moment, how have you found that your support network has best put you back on the right track?
Well, that's a great question. Okay, look at this from both sides. Personally, my selfish answer to that would be when I've wanted to talk about something or asked for an opinion and help, my family and friends are brilliant at giving it then. There's times when I was completely stressed and not knowing the answers but trying to work through them, where advice and opinion, no matter what was being given, was just advice and opinion, but it was good to talk about, but it didn't help to resolve what I was resolving over here. And it's like, yes, I understand that, but here's the 50 steps ahead of it. An example would be, well, just quit, just step out. And it's like, yeah, but I can't of that particular business because I've got, 10 salaries to pay and loads of things to support. And yes, I'd love to, but I can't hand my notice in. It just doesn't work like that. Or I can, but I've got an uncoupling of it, or I will lose everything if I do it in the wrong way. So it wasn't just a case of, oh yeah, 3 months notice, off you go. So I think back to the, if you've got a partner and they seem stressed and they're doing all these things, it's because they are stressed. But what you can do to help them is remind them and talk about the bigger picture. Because the stress, in my opinion, comes from the right now. I've just got to get this job done off my plate and onto another one. And so another task or another problem at the wrong time does not help. You haven't done the washing. You haven't done that. No, I've not. But I've not had a shower for 2 days because I've been doing this. So I've not washed myself, let alone, So it's all relative to the time you've got. But being able to just come on, we're going for a walk, or you haven't gone to the gym, or you haven't stepped away from that. That really helped me because, the endorphins move, the walk, the fresh air away from the screen, taking a step back from the problem. You can solve it within 5 minutes if you just pull yourself out of that problem and talk about something completely different and go for that wander. So I think it's just, I'd summarize it and be supportive. I presume the man or woman in question, as you referred to, is trying to do something that wants to make the family life better. And most men come across as selfish. I can come across as selfish, but my wife said, "What are you truly doing it for?" It's like, well, I'd like a family one day, and I want to ensure that we've got the 3-bedroom house and we're set up ahead of the game. And it never works that way, right? It's never perfect, but that's what drives me. That's why I stay up till silly o'clock and get up in the morning. And it's not sustainable, but there's that why of what we're doing it for. And I think it's also, this is a really forward thing to say, but from both sides of the spectrum, you need to be aware if you're on different paths. It would be very, very obvious to my wife and I if we didn't work, because we're so busy on business. We're so extreme that we love spending time together when we have it, but then we're like this. If one of us was needy, I don't think we would work because we just wouldn't have the time for each other in that respect. So I think it's making sure that the journey that you're on as an individual, whatever that means, and what makes you happy, that includes your network, that includes your partners, that includes your family. And, you can change it all in the same way you can change a business or you can change a job. It's just complex and it hurts, but it can be done.
That bigger picture scenario you were talking about, my wife is so good at that. And I really agree with what you're saying. And I can really resonate in terms of, if I'm struggling, it is because I'm getting so caught in the here and now and I just can't see the wood from the tree.
Yep.
We were actually due to record this episode a couple of days ago, but we moved it to today. And the reason is because my wife and I both took a holiday day, and we wanted to spend some time together, but actually I really needed some space away because I've been struggling a little bit for the last couple of weeks just with various things stressing me out. And we just went to Epping Forest and just walked for a good couple of hours. And just that opportunity to walk and talk. And the other thing that she does really well is she doesn't go into fix it mode. She doesn't try and offer solutions. She'll just kind of heard a great expression the other day. She'll get in the mud with me and just be there and just empathize. And as we said, just kind of help me see the bigger picture. And you just feel, I just felt so much better after that. So I think you're right in terms of you're not always looking for direct solutions when you're sort of ready to talk. It is just to share and just have someone else understand or say they understand or feel like someone else is understanding, and sort of helping you get from, that tunnel vision that you've got to be able to see things a lot more clearly.
I mean, I think as well, we're talking here that we are very lucky to have supportive partners and wives and families in that respect. So, some people unfortunately will not be as lucky in that position right now, or choose not to be. The same principle applies when you have a network around you like that. And for entrepreneurs just starting, definitely go and find other entrepreneurs and founders like yourself in WeWork, open spots, or meet in local cafes, and just find a couple of people that you can bounce ideas between, because no one else will get what you're going through if you're going to start a business. And particularly if you're a second-time founder like I am, you find it straight away. You're ringing your complete opposite numbers going, what do you think of this? Where's that? And again, there's certain friends that everyone will be able to think of their friend group, whether it's one person or 10 people or more. And there'll be one or two in that group that who would you pick up the phone to? It wouldn't be all of them. It wouldn't be all of them. You love having beers and you'll see them every time when you're with them. They are your best mates. And if you did phone them, they'd be straight there for you because then there's a serious problem. But there'll be a couple of them that you could talk until midnight and chew the fat through, and it would be okay. So I think it's just think about your network and pick up the phone, and you need encouragement. Everyone needs that self-belief, that stupid self-belief that, yeah, go for it. Well, okay. Right, we're off. It's in that's sport, that's life, that's work, it's anything.
I want to come full circle from our story earlier when you'd stepped away from your first business and you took 6 months off, and you were saying that you didn't even have 6 months worth of money in the bank, but you still did it. What happened between then and where you are now with your latest venture, Bob? And tell us a little bit about what that is exactly.
Blimey, a great question all in one. The 6 months slowly allowed me to rebuild my confidence, resilience, happiness, passion. And 3 of those months was just kind of going through the dip of just having some sleep after 10 years and realizing, God, I'm just tired. And it's okay just to not think all the time and not have the stress of a million emails. Then it started to turn into the passion came back of exercise and fun and look after yourself and get fit and be a man, and when I say be a man, it's like, for me, it's that fitness, health, eat, happiness, be a human more than be a man. And I think that started to build me up again, and then wanting to be social again, and re-engage myself with my network more and more, and bring a bit of laughter and a bit of fun. And then back to that comment of whilst in the shower, sitting there, emotional, I started to think about, what do I want to do next? Like, no matter how down I am, I'm going to have to get a job. I'm going to have to make some money. I'm going to have to do something. I'm completely unemployable. People will say I am, but I've struggled to work under a group of people. I love to work with and to drive forward. And so, okay, I need to start a business again, but I've got to take all of these learnings that I got wrong last time, which was taking on too much, trying to do everything and not putting the right skills in place, trusting that the business would grow, taking some time out and not, leading rather than doing all the time. And I went, right, well, I've done B2B software, B2B2C, education. I want to find something that people use and love daily. And I wanted to find something that I would absolutely use every single day. Food and drink for me, love it, but there's lots of brands out there doing great things, and I just couldn't see a space of what I was thinking of. Lots of different things like that, but it had to be a product-based business. And I thought, well, what's not been touched for the last 50 years in the way that I would revolutionize it? And at the same time as this, I was throwing away lots of plastic body wash bottles from my shower between my wife and I. I have slightly sensitive skin. I wouldn't say not a condition. It's just if I use a product with harsh chemicals, it leaves me stinging or dry, and I just didn't like that feeling. Whereas brands like Femme Fresh for a female for cleansing and hygiene stood out to me. And I thought, well, is there a male version of Femme Fresh? I know they have a range of Femme Fresh for men, but is there like a real sort of man's brand that can support that? Because I felt that men was quite neglected when you start to look into the stores like Sainsbury's, that you've got 500 bottles of body wash and shower gel and soap for women, and you've got a couple of bars, bit of Nivea for men, a bit of L'Oreal for men, and a bit of Lynx. Harry's just coming in, looks great, Bulldog, all of them there, but plastic bottles, liquid, waste. And so effectively, long story short, we wanted to revolutionize the body wash industry and create a business called Bob. So think of Harry's the razors, very similar, but Bob, B-O-B. And the whole point was creating a refillable product for men to start with that was designed to support people with sort of softer skin, for example. We're not allowed to say that it's designed for sensitive skin because I haven't got through the dermatological testing, so I'm being very careful what I'm saying. But just a good soap that you could refill and one that you could have both in your shower and also travel with. Because there's a big disconnect of leaking bottles, wet soap bars, that ability to use something in your shower and then put in your wash bag, go to the gym, go on holiday, go to the hotel. And so effectively, I thought, right, going to have a go at this. Did some quick testing, and this is for anybody starting up. Look at who's around you. Some people will have great suggestions. Some people will have experience in running businesses. Some people will have money. Some people will have whatever it is you need in that network. You are one call away from someone else who knows. And I mapped it all out, and I went, I need some people with some money. I need some people that know the body industry, and I need something else. And I got on the phone, and I had interest straight away. As part of that, I found my first co-founder, Will. He always wanted to start a new business, but was a bit nervous in the risk-taking from leaving a business into sort of running a business, and we've got no money, no investment. I gave the confidence of, I'll go and find the money and the investment, but I need you to help me run. You need to own and run everything because your skill set's amazing. Tick. But we both aren't very creative. We have good ideas, but we can't design, we can't build, we can't do images, we can't do statics, we can't do videos. And so we brought our third co-founder in with Max. That was at the end of 2023. And then effectively we started on that journey. We mapped it out. It's taking us 18 months to build the refillable applicator, the Bob Bar formulation, and the product that comes with it. Very simply, it's in a pack like this, and you've got your applicator, soap, and a shower mountain in there. And we are literally expecting our first 10,000 shower packs to land tonight into the UK. And all in between has been exciting, purpose-driven, challenging, but loving it.
And I'm sure so many lessons that you've learned from what happened previously that you've been able to take into this. And I think it's just always great to hear when someone has hit a low point and has been able to turn it around and is on like the next big adventure now. I think is fantastic. So kudos to you for that. I think it's brilliant.
Thank you.
Michael, my last question for you today. What piece of advice would you want to leave to anyone who is looking to start a new adventure? And I use that very broad term deliberately because I'm not just talking about a business venture. I'm talking about a new challenge in their life, whatever that looks like, from someone that's been there and done that on numerous occasions. And they're kind of sitting on the fence a little bit at the moment in terms of really taking that leap that you need to really fully commit yourself to. What could you tell that person listening to this now that will help them take that initial step forward?
Politely, JFDI, just do it. And that's not very helpful, but if you take an example of a small challenge, like I'd love to do a marathon, and you've never run a marathon before. Great. Go and do a 5K. Go and sign up to a 5K on Saturday and start small. Complete that. Then try a 10K. When you get to there, then do the marathon. And I say that in the sense of to those that may not want to take the big jump. Like, there are people like yourself, Simeon, and others that are just like, just going to go for an Ironman. I can imagine, like, you know what's involved, you know it's a long way, but it's then, when do I sign up, and is it right this year to do, because you know what's there. But for my mum, for example, she wants to do so many things in life, and I spend half my time just saying, okay, let's sign up to it, let's do it. And it's only because I realised that the faster you sign up to it, the faster you'll fail, the faster you'll enjoy it, the faster you'll go again. And you know what? You'll learn something from it. You'll meet something. It's about that journey more than it is the end goal, as we talked about at the start. And I think start small. Back to what I just said there, like, do it and start small. And if I can relate this back to the business side of it rather than the everything else in life, it's every idea starts in the same way. You get up in the morning as a man or a woman, you put your pants on if you wear them, you put your trousers on or whatever you wear, and you go downstairs and you start your day. You and I are no different to each other in that respect. We get woken up in different ways at different times in the day, or whatever we do, got different stress levels, but we all have the same time to do stuff. And I'll be really clear here. I haven't made any money, as in personally. I've not sold out my businesses. I'm not a millionaire. I am very much underpaid, driving a new business forward, raising investment, still struggling with money to pay all the bills, living in London. But I want to be there because the network's there. But I do it because it ultimately gives me that ability to very much be in the right environment, in the right area. So I think, in summary, just do it and start small and get yourself out there.
Michael, thank you so much for your time today. I found this a really fascinating conversation. I've never really had such a long, in-depth conversation with an entrepreneur before. And I think my biggest takeaway, which I think a lot of people listening to as well, is it's just enjoying that journey. And I think for something like entrepreneurship, but just taking on any challenge, I think if you get so wrapped up in the end goal and where you're looking to go, you can very easily lose yourself, and the pressure will obviously then start to build. But if you can just, as you said, just take that first step, and you've illustrated it so well in the stories that you've told. You've succeeded, you've hit low points, but it's okay. You've recovered and you've built back up again. I think that's certainly something I can relate to as well. It's this fear of, well, if I fail, what's going to happen? And a lot of the time, it's not going to be the end of the world. You'll just kind of dust yourself off and, start again. And I think it is just having that mindset of enjoying the journey, enjoying the challenge, enjoying the highs and the lows, as opposed to just focusing on the end goal. And I think ultimately that will just, as we said, relieve a lot of this pressure and just hopefully bring a lot more sort of like happiness and fulfillment in what you're doing. So it's been a fascinating conversation with you today, Michael. So thank you so much for your time.
Simeon, thank you. I've really enjoyed it and hope it's given something for the audience to think about. And, we're not here for a long time. We're here for a good time. So just do it.